When I talk about my mental health and the fact that I've been going to therapy for the past 3.5 years, the most common question I get is, does therapy work? And the short answer is yes. But there are a few conditions that have to be met in order for my therapy to succeed. Now, the first one is that I actually want to go to therapy. So, when I began my therapy sessions 3.5 years ago, I wanted to go to therapy. I wanted to change. I needed to change because I hit rock bottom. Now, the second one is that I needed to find a good therapist. And based on recommendations and references, I did find a great therapist. And we've been working together for the past 3.5 years. She was my only therapist, and I would not have changed her for whatever the price would be. Whatever the price she would be charging, I would be paying it because she is that good. Now, if you want to learn more about how I actually found my therapist, here is the video on how to actually find a good therapist, because a bad therapist can set you up for failure, and it can cause you to be even worse than what you were before. Now, the next condition is that you pick the right therapy for you. So in my case, I am going to what I think is considered a talking psychotherapy. This for my condition, as in being heavily abused and traumatized as a child, is the best long term strategy for me. Since I know I'm going to be going to therapy for probably the next 15 years, I need to talk with my therapist through all of the situations that I've been through the traumas and the triggers that are currently happening in my life, and then resolving them. This is a laborious and long-term process, but nevertheless, it needs to happen. Which brings me to the next condition is that I have to work in order for my therapy to be successful. And when I mean work, I actually do mean work. Just going to therapy once a week for 1 hour is not enough. Not even it's it's not even the bare minimum. The My mental health and going through my triggers, my trauma has become my full-time job. Every ounce of energy, at least at the beginning, that I had went through me trying to understand what was happening to me, what kind of situation I was, why was it happening, and what was the corresponding events in the past that made me respond in such a manner. What were my defensive mechanisms in the past that worked that are not working now? And then reliving through this trauma, these historical events that happened so that I could process them. And that's one of the worst parts about therapy is that yes, you have to relive them, because the way our subconscious works is that our subconscious, it does not matter for it that that event happened 15, 20 years ago. It still remembers. And in order for us, in order for our subconscious to let that memory go, to let that trauma go, we need to process it and replace it with more modern, current defensive mechanisms, or just release those defensive mechanisms that worked for us in the past that are not working for us right now. And that's the hardest part. And also a reason why, at least at the beginning of when you start therapy, and definitely it was true for me, I felt tired, completely exhausted all the time. And I actually burnt out completely. So I actually had to go to sick leave for 6 months because at that point, my sole focus was resolving that trauma, because the trauma that I was resolving at that point was the my core trauma that I had from my dad and my mom. So it takes a lot of commitment from you, or in this case, from me, to go and make it work on a daily basis. I always am thinking about what's happening with me. Why am I having this trigger? Or even why I'm not having this? Why am I having such a great day today? Or why am I having such a bad day? What are the corresponding things? And in this case, I'm learning a lot about myself. And as the 3.5 years have progressed, the relative amount of energy that I have to use for these kinds of thinking has become lower and lower. And I can use the released energy from the traumas that I've covered and that I've processed to do other things, to do my hobbies, just to enjoy myself a lot more. And the last condition for therapy to work for you, and in this case for me, is that I have to believe that I can improve and overcome my trauma. I have to believe that the trauma that has happened, it happened, but I can also outlive it. I can resolve it. And I believe that with this, I'm going to become a stronger and better person than I even am right now. I am still an amazing person right now, but I can become even better. And what I have to believe is also that with resolving this trauma, I'm going to be unmasking myself to who I actually really am. And I'm going to be finding things about myself, what things I love to do, what would be my ideal hobbies versus what I thought and who I needed to be in the past. And I really do need to believe this because one of the most common things of people that we've gone through trauma is that the trauma defined me, and if I resolve the trauma, I'm not going to be who I am right now. So in my case, I've been really successful professionally, and my biggest worry was if I resolve my trauma, I'm not going to be able to be successful again because my trauma defined my success, which in the end, at first, you have to just believe it on blind trust. I need to believe that that's not going to happen, that I'm going to be using what good I've learned from getting that trauma and being successful when I was, that all of the positive things that I got out of that trauma, it's still going to be there. And for me, that's definitely been the case. When I've been resolving my trauma, the positive, the good things, as in my empathy, my being able to feel other people's emotions and being really sharp and objective focused has still stayed. And my trauma has gone away. And as a result, I got on a daily basis more energy than I had ever before when I started my therapy. And these are the conditions that you need to achieve in order for therapy to work. If you don't achieve if you don't achieve these conditions, possibly one is okay, but if you don't achieve more than one, then therapy is probably not going to work, and you're not going to be happy, probably bitching that therapy doesn't work. And the most common one usually is that you don't put enough effort into it. You think that just talking to your therapist once a week is enough, and it's not. It's not nearly enough. Think about it more than for 1 hour that you're spending with your therapist, you have to spend at least 10 hours in your own thoughts, your own recollections about your mental health, trauma, triggers, and what abuse happened to you as a child, especially going through your life. Because your life that it is right now is informing you where you are in your mental health journey. That's it.